if aired at all, are diffused in other ways. Here, CNN's Aaron Brown feels the need to apologize for showing pictures of demonstrators. Dissent is a byproduct of democracy, we're told, and something we must suffer through on the way to war.
The American democracy. You are allowed to take to the streets to show your displeasure, even in times like this. This is part of what we go through, and as long as it stays peaceful.
But if dissent is to be tolerated, it is portrayed as an empty exercise. If therapeutic messages can't keep protesters off the streets, perhaps protesting itself can be a way to blow off steam.
Now, psychologists are discovering that protesting can have a surprising effect on a child's health. Lisa Stofko has more. It's in tonight's Connect with Kids.
A new study out of Britain shows protesting in general can improve a person's mental and physical well-being.
We're in Afghanistan! We're in Iraq! Detention around us!
Protests that are peaceful can actually improve a person's mental and even physical health. It doesn't seem to matter what your child is protesting for or against. Just being involved can reduce stress, anxiety, and depression.
It makes you feel like you're making a difference. I feel that I'm empowered because...
In some places, dissent is reduced to an adolescent temper tantrum or an extracurricular activity. In others, dissent is trivialized as a vain ploy for attention, as in the metaphor of the fashion statement.
Today's fashion statement on 5th, plastic handcuffs, more than 150 arrests.
If dissent is nothing more than childish vanity, the next logical question is whether dissent matters at all. Television News spent a good deal of time posing this question.
Anti-war protests are the email topic of the day. We want to know your thoughts on this. Are they effective in changing public policy, or do you think they send the wrong signal to U.S. troops overseas?
The people united will never be defeated!
But is America really listening?
After the 2003 invasion, Television News apparently decided that the answer to this question was no. Saddam had lost the war, and so had the protesters along with him.
Despite ongoing rhetoric, anti-war protesters are decreasing in numbers and increasingly frustrated. The war they call unjust is just about done and has gone much more smoothly than they predicted.
If protesters had been irrelevant before the invasion, they were deemed absurd after it, even as early as April of 2003, during the beginnings of the long occupation of Iraq.
What's an anti-war demonstrator to do? Well, for some peace activists, the answer seems to be find a new target. But are they hurting their own cause? Trace Gallagher reports. You decide.
Having failed at stopping the liberation of Iraq, anti-war groups are now trying to get people to oppose the president, oppose funding for the recovery of Iraq, and oppose the cultural impact of American fast food.
Well, it's been 25 days since the war in Iraq began, and 4 days ago only that we all watched that statue of Saddam Hussein coming down in Baghdad. The Iraqi regime has collapsed. Those people who said it would be short and successful, at least in the military phase, have proven to be right. And yet this weekend in more than 50 countries overseas and here, there were people still demonstrating against the war. So we asked ABC's Judy Muller to take a closer look at why.
Actors and actresses have to watch out now because there's a war on, and if you say the wrong thing, it could be held against you.
Nobody knows that better than the Dixie Chicks, who continue to suffer the backlash from lead singer Natalie Maine's anti-Bush comments.
If the voice of the masses was irrelevant, especially so were the voices of those who had an audience, celebrities and other high-profile figures.
Put on your seatbelts, we're in for a ride. It's the Dennis Prager Show.
Radio talk show host Dennis Prager says stars are under the misguided impression they speak for everyday Americans.
The idea that someone who has acted now has a claim on my respect for his or her opinions on the great moral issues of the day is absurd.
Still, the barrage of ads goes on.
Don't invade Iraq. Inspections work. War won't.
The new rule? Celebrities with their own talk show, like Dennis Prager or Michael Savage, could have legitimate views. Celebrities who dissented could not.
And Martin Sheen says it's not for his humanity to free these people. Okay. Do you remember all the Hollywood idiots who said we shouldn't liberate the people? Why not? This was okay to them? This was good. This is what was going on.
Dissent on any visible level was associated with Hollywood phoniness.
In fact, you should be an actor because you sound just like one. To call the president stupid, he doesn't know much about anything, that's just great. Go with Danny Glover and Susan Sarandon. You fit in perfectly. Yeah, you know those.
If a dissenting voice did happen to have press credentials, such as Helen Thomas, the oldest member of the White House press corps, she would have to be elevated to the status of celebrity first, before her views were trivialized.
That may have cost her the kind of first-row seniority she's enjoyed in Washington for decades.
Not calling on Helen Thomas at a press conference is like a field trip to Washington when you don't go to the Washington Monument.
Thomas called last night's news conference scripted. She said the president had a list of names to call on, and she charges the president was afraid to call on her. If that's true, we can say goodbye to classic scenes like this.
And I have a follow-up.
Thank you for warning me.
The White House responds by saying that...
As with street protest, if high-profile dissent could not be contained, perhaps it could be neutralized with a now familiar question.
Celebrity opinion in the debate over a possible war has spawned a second debate on the streets, whether star power has any real power to shape public opinion. A recent poll says no. More than 90% of those surveyed say celebrity activism does not affect their political opinions. This website, created by a North Carolina mom, is called Citizens Against Celebrity Pundits. It's received more than 60,000 cyber signatures from people who want celebrities to shut up.
If taken seriously, the dominant framing of dissent spans the field, rendering practically all critical voices illegitimate. When an entire range of voices is silenced, either criminalized or trivialized, then real democracy has given way to a version of authoritarianism.
This war is obviously underway, Aaron, and it's going to get a lot more intense.
At some point, we will all be shocked and awed at some point. We will all be shocked and awed at some point.
Finally, war on this planet.
We will all be shocked and awed at some point.
Psychological impact.
We will all be shocked and awed at some point.
Finally.
I still very much believe from people I've talked to that we will all and awed.
Weapons, and images.
Odd.
Weapons, and images.
Odd.
And images. War of words. Weapons of mass persuasion. War of words.
War on this planet.
Psychological impact. The formula remains the same. The formula remains the same.
Finally, shock and awe. Truly history in the making, with the military and media cooperation unprecedented in the history of war on this planet.
They believe that the PR war was as important to the effort as the war on the ground.
The PR war
war, and there is, in fact, a PR war.
It was going to be the first PR victory.
In that way, the formula remains the same. The formula remains the same.